Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to
You
Prospect
haven't.
Central 101.
Time out. I forgot. We didn't put on screen share.
Oh, that's fine. I just had the stats page put up.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, welcome back to Prospect Central 101. My name is Chris, and today joining me we have,
Braden.
and we're going to be talking to you guys a little bit about what just happened in Super Bowl 54 in Miami, Florida, at Hard Rock Stadium in the year 2020 on February 2nd, even though it's now the third year, but whatever. So, we just got done watching the game a little over an hour and a half ago. Well, actually, about 2 hours ago now. What are your immediate reactions?
Apparently, Kyle Shanahan didn't learn from the 28-3 fiasco. It's just he got really conservative and not near again near at the end of the first half, but in the second half as well. And it's just for the first three and a half quarters, the 49ers were the better team. It's just they were too conservative, and Mahomes had one big play to Hill to set up a touchdown to make it a 3-point game, and then they got conservative, had a 3-and-out, and the Chiefs were able to go take the lead. And at that point, having a Garoppolo had to go win it, and he had on a one play he had Sanders wide open for a touchdown, but he airmailed him like by a good 5 yards. That would have given them the lead. So it's just they were the better team for most of the game. It's just unfortunately for them they got conservative, and the Chiefs and were able to explode and get touchdowns and able to hold on at the end with some good defensive stops.
Yeah, you talk specifically about the conservative point. I'm curious what you think about the decision going into the half.
I didn't agree with it at all.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
felt like you needed to go get points. You needed to go get something, because if you got a field goal there, hypothetically, if the game goes in a similar fashion on that last drive, before the last drive when it was still a touchdown game, I've 24-20. If you got a field goal at the end of the first half, it's only a 1-point game, and you could run the football down the clock and go kick a field goal and win, and hypothetically win at the buzzer.
And like, it wasn't like a deciding moment or anything. I mean, they did end up losing by 10, but uh, it was kind of just one of those moments in the game where it was like, you're kind of just leaving points on the board, really. So, uh, what we're going to end up doing, and I kind of alluded to this before we started, but I didn't actually tell you this, is what we're going to do is go over all of our predictions from the Kansas City video, and we're going to basically talk about how those may or may not have affected the way that the game ended up progressing.
Hmm.
So we'll skip over the anthem ones and everything like that. But the first football specific prompt that we talked about was having a scoring drive under a minute and 42 seconds. And I ended up getting that one right when I said that there was. That didn't end up mattering too much because the Chiefs ended up basically being given that touchdown. But what are your thoughts on the explosiveness of the Chiefs' offense and how quickly they were able to score? Because even if that was their only possession that did end up finishing under that time, they had a lot of quick possessions. Their field goal 4.5, their touchdown, their other touchdown 2.5 minutes, their second touchdown 2.5 minutes. So all three of their touchdown drives were 2 minutes and 40 seconds or less.
Yeah, that is true, but at the same time, what I think an underrated factor in this is their special teams unit was flat out better. They won the field position battle on special teams, and I feel like they had a lot of generous starting field position to where they were. While yes, they didn't get that one huge play, with the exception of that Tyreek Hill one when it was they were down 10, they were able to just get 10, 15, 10 yards of on one play, 9 yards in the next, and slowly just not necessarily slowly, but just quickly trickle down the field, even though you're not making a splash play that necessarily ends up on a highlight reel.
True. So another aspect that's kind of related to that in a way, I guess, is the first score, other than of course the San Francisco field goal, took quite a long time to happen in this game. It actually started out pretty slow for the
Hmm.
first few minutes, and then finally, with 31 seconds left to go in the first quarter, is when we got our first official touchdown. So do you think that that played in favor of Kansas City being able to keep San Francisco off the board for that long, or do you think that that was something that San Francisco wanted and they just couldn't capitalize?
Honestly, I think that's what they wanted to San Francisco. They wanted to do because they want to. They were for a while. They did a good job limiting Mahomes and forcing three and outs and forcing them to punt. It's just, or kick a field goal to tie it up. Uh, I'm I'm stupid. That didn't happen. Sorry, but and force them into field goal ranges and all that stuff and but it just they weren't able to capitalize on that when they did get the ball back when they were up 3-0. They just weren't able to capitalize early on in the game, and I feel like that was a trend. That was a trend for most of the game. It's just the offenses weren't that extremely sharp for most of the game tonight.
Yep. And it's one reason why maybe the offenses weren't as good was, except for the last play of the game from scrimmage, basically that mattered.
Basically, the last quarter.
Oh, I'm thinking about the run game.
Yeah,
And aside from the one play where Damian Williams got like the 38-yard rushing touchdown, whatever, there was not a lot of run plays or successful run plays, I guess, from either team. There's 21st rushing first downs. That's kind of exaggerated based on short yardage. It seems like the running ability of both teams, Deebo Samuel was probably the best pure runner in this football game.
yeah,
I mean, if you
yeah.
think about it, because Mostert, or however you technically say it, like 58 yards is probably one of the worst games he's had since he became a starter. And even just going over the box score, like Damian Williams for most of the game until like the one long uncontested touchdown run, even he wasn't really all that effective. People were talking about him as MVP. I didn't see that. Patrick Mahomes, okay runner, not really a whole lot there. Uh, Tico Coleman, like 28 rushing. There was not really a whole lot of rushing aside from the one big play at the very end from Williams and then a couple of big plays from Debo. So, what do you think about the lack of impact from the run games kind of limiting these two offenses today? And was that a product of good defense or just poor rushing offense? Or do you disagree and think that both teams were better running the ball than I do?
I don't disagree necessarily for much as Kansas City, but honestly, I disagree with San Francisco. I thought they were running the ball extremely well for most of the game. They weren't doing the highlight reel plays, but they were consistently getting 4 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 7 yards, just consistently being able to run the ball. And when they were up double digits, they just went away with that for no reason.
Okay.
They especially when they in the fourth quarter when they were up 20-10, they got and 20 to 10, and then even more so when Kansas City got the touchdown and they have the ball up 6 minutes left. They throw the ball twice, I believe, and go three and out. But they Shanahan just went from it was like the Atlanta game. He went away from the running the football for no reason.
Interesting. So, as far as touchdowns go, were you a bit surprised by the lack of actual touchdowns in this game? Because, I mean, we both
Yeah,
kind of got it about right in reality, but I think that the way that the media was kind of hyping this game up, it, that was almost like there should have been a lot higher scoring game than it was.
yeah, I think there was. It's just like there ended up being touchdowns, but if you take away the Williams garbage time touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily garbage time, but basically a touchdown to where he doesn't
Uncontested.
necessarily. Yeah, uncontested. That's a better word than garbage time. You know, there wasn't a whole lot. There was what two. There was what 4 or 5.
There would have been
Take
5
away
if
that.
you don't do that. The
Yeah,
Mahomes run, the Kelsey catch.
yeah, and then so it's like I feel like there was a lack of touchdowns because, and I feel like defenses played well for most of the game. And just the fourth quarter, the Chiefs finally figured themselves out, and then also again the 49ers just going away from the run game also limited their potential to score points and just have that one drive at the end, the middle to the late middle slash early end game of the fourth quarter to where they could have having a 4 minute drive, got a touchdown, and just killed the game because Shanahan just refused to run the ball because I guess he has an obsession for Italian Dak Prescott or something.
One thing I think was interesting about this game and the way it progressed is through the first 3 quarters, Jimmy G was having a very efficient game. I think he
Yeah,
was like
it was
18 of
like
20 or
15 to
something like that at
17,
one
or it
point.
was like yeah, like 17 to 20, 18 to 20. It sounds right.
And like yeah, he had I think 1 or 2 incompletions
One
after
one
like the third
interception.
quarter.
Yeah,
And he ended up with a 40 QBR. That is horrible.
yeah, because
Especially given that his offensive line only gave up 1 actual sack.
in
Um,
the fourth quarter, I saw on ESPN he went like 3 of 11 for 36 yards in the interception in the fourth quarter.
oh
So
my
I
goodness.
so honestly after Tyrann Mathieu, when he was on the sideline after the Chiefs, Jesus Lord, after the 49ers made a 2010 where he kind of just chewed out the defense, they clamped down and they stopped the passing game. And the 49ers didn't make the necessary adjustments needed to counter that.
And even the other side, I mean, 26 of 42 for Mahomes, what does that equal out to? 50%?
Around it.
Yeah, basically 50%. That's not really the best game that he's ever had. And even the throws that he did make, like the Tyreek Hill 44-yard completion, that was
Yeah.
not really all that great of a throw. Tyreek Hill came to a complete stop to catch that football. Like that was not in stride. That was not leaving him in space at all. He kind of got lucky he came down with it. The Sammy Watkins really nice catch on third down. Like that was way over his head. Sammy Watkins had to make a crazy play to make that catch. I mean, he had tons of space around him. So like even the good throws that Mahomes made today were not really all that great of a throw.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. And it's like, but at the same, it shows how good he is to where even though he wasn't that great tonight, he was still able to go to just be absolutely spectacular, to be great for the average quarterback because he had 2 interceptions and but still was able to throw it for still for 285
286
yards and two
yards.
touchdowns, and also he added a rushing touchdown. So it's just he was just he had a good game, but it wasn't up to the standard that we're used to seeing from Mahomes. So yeah, he wasn't his efficient. He was missing throws, and I think it'll come out later that he was playing with he it's like at times he was limping, and he also took several big hits. So I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if it comes out later this week or next week that he was playing through an injury in this game.
And yeah, and I will say this much, the one throw that he made on the boundary to Sammy Watkins running down the field, that was probably the throw that made the Super Bowl for me. I think that ended up setting up the Kelsey touchdown, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there was that one really nice play where it was like Watkins had to stretch out a little bit for it, but he hit him right on the sideline, right on the boundary. That was the one real big highlight game winning moment for me. was when he made that one throw uh, on the right side of the field. I forget exactly when it was, but that was a really, really nice play, and that was one of his best throws, if not his best throw on the day for me.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
oh, were you gonna say something?
Nah, I'm good.
Ah, just scrolling through here. Oh, a lot of short touchdowns today. Does that really surprise you?
I mean, yes and no. No, I'm not surprised to where when they were able to get in the red zone, both teams for the most part were able to convert and get touchdowns, and not have to settle for field goals. But at the same time, there wasn't the a lot of the explosive touchdowns, like the
Right.
big 50-yard touchdowns that we expect from more so the Chiefs, but the 49ers as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to be getting at too. Was like, I mean, this is a game where we thought, at least some of us thought, to some varying degrees, that this would be a explosive type of flashy playmaking game. And honestly, the way that it ended up turning out, it almost ended up like the way that you would think San Francisco would want it to go. More of your grinded out type of. It was a very fast game too. Like I mean, that game it was almost over at 10 o'clock Eastern.
Hmm.
It was so fast moving because of all the run plays, in terms of volume of run plays. 22 rushes, 29 rushes. Both teams ran the ball more than they threw it. Like that's kind of crazy. And then because of that, you got to shoot clock. You got to move the pace of the game along. There was no timeouts in the first quarter until like the last 10 seconds when they called the one timeout on third down. Uh, San Francisco. So it was a very, very quick, fast moving game. And you didn't really have those explosive plays. It was just a really, really just get through it as fast as you can type of pace. And it almost kind of went along the way, but that you thought San Francisco was probably going to end up winning the game, especially by the time we got through the third quarter.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree.
One thing that I do think was, and also kind of surprising, I think kind of contributed to that though, was the defenses for both of these teams. We knew that San Francisco coming in had a pretty good defense, but the ability to match up with Kansas City was kind of a question mark for them, and why we both picked Kansas City to win, scoring about 31, 34 points. So, how much of the matchups issues, exploitations, do you think were a reason why Kansas City was able to win, or maybe why they weren't as efficient or potent on offense as we think? Either take your side on that.
Honestly, I think is they were able to exploit their matchups when they had the opportunity. It's just the most part. It's just for most of the game, Mahomes didn't have the time to just throw the football because Eric Fisher was getting absolutely destroyed
Destroyed.
by Nick Bosa. And as much as I want to make a joke, I will not. It just he was getting destroyed. But as as much as respect Richard Sherman, he did not have a very good game.
Right.
No, not a lot of the members of the 49er secondary had a great night. A lot of the time receivers were getting open, and it just Mahomes didn't have the time to get to them. So I feel like the matchups, Kansas City exploited the matchups. It's just it took time for the offensive line to finally get their act together and give Mahomes times to exploit the matchups, like Kelsey on Sherman and short yardage and stuff like that, and Sherman on Hill, where they do a quick little hitch and allow Hill to just make maneuvers around Sherman. So yeah, I just
And the
so yeah,
long
it's just
blockings play that I talked about earlier, the one really nice throw that I thought Mahomes had, that was where he beat Sherman too.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So yeah, I feel like the Chiefs did a great job exploiting the matchups that they were given.
Cool. But what about the interceptions, though? I mean, both teams had two interceptions, and especially Kansas City, I think, was a little bit more surprising with that. But also Mahomes throwing two interceptions as well. So kind of a little bit more because I think both of us picked the under 1.5 total interceptions.
Yeah, and both of them broke it themselves.
So is that kind of
Put the
something that was? I mean, I think it became evident as the game progressed that that was kind of becoming more realistic and that the defenses were going to be good. But going in, even like 6 o'clock today,
Yeah, I mean, it's just the first interception by Garoppolo is just he was throwing while he was being hit, and he cannot throw that ball, and just unfortunately for them, Kansas City only had to kick a field was only able to kick a field goal on that drive, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. So yeah, it's just there's that, and Mahomes, you see, the two throws he made were just not that, it just wasn't like him. Like the first interception, normally he'd let Tyreek just drive back to that ball, and he just put it, whether he just missed it or it was a miscommunication, he put it to the right into the spot where the 49ers defender, I think it was Warner, who got the interception on the first one, and the second one was just it was just you just missed Tyreek wide open, threw it behind him, and it was tipped right to the cornerback Moore. So yeah, it's just he wasn't himself tonight, but at the same time, Patrick Mahomes, not at his best, was still pretty damn good.
yeah. Uh, another thing, I guess, that was a little bit kind of surprising about this game was the lack of aggressiveness from both of these teams. Andy Reid, a little bit more so than Shanahan, was pretty aggressive, especially earlier on. But in terms of like going forward on fourth down situations, uh, I don't remember how many punts there were. There was only one punt. Oh, 4 punts. So does there being 4 punts in this game kind of surprise you at all?
No, not really. No, I don't disagree. I thought that it would be high scoring and both teams would be able to at least get field goals on some of the most of the possessions. So no, that there was only 4 points doesn't surprise me.
Gotcha. By the way, I was talking to you about this off game where there were 7 kick returns. I actually just looked here.
God
Oh
damn.
well. Anyway, um, and even like I guess applying that to the 2 point conversion too. Were you surprised that teams didn't go for 2 points conversions more often, specifically San Francisco to get to 21?
Not really. Honestly, I didn't feel like there was a lot of times they should. I didn't feel like there was an opportunity to really go for two. And knowing Andy Reid and how aggressive he was tonight, I feel like if he felt there was an opportunity to get points, 2 points, he would have taken it. But I just didn't feel like there was a spot where the risk of not getting any points was worth the reward of possibly getting two. So I'm not really surprised about it just because an opportunity really didn't show itself during tonight's game.
Fair enough. One thing that we did kind of both get very, very wrong on the Chiefs preview segment was the I don't want to say inability of the Chiefs to be explosive because that wouldn't necessarily be accurate, but how much Kansas City could necessarily put up in a row. I think you said that you wouldn't be surprised if they ended up putting up two straight, and I said I would be pretty surprised if they did end up putting up two straight touchdowns, and they ended up putting up three straight touchdowns unanswered in the fourth quarter. So, what do you think ended up kind of contributing to that? And how much do you think that was Mahomes just kind of coming up in the clutch? Or do you think that that was a coaching thing or a schematic
Sorry,
thing?
can you
Like,
repeat?
what
Can you
do
repeat
you
the
think
first
was
part of the
responsible leading
question?
toward that?
What was the first part of the question? Sorry.
So, one thing that we talked about on the Chiefs preview was not necessarily the Chiefs' inability to be explosive, but like I think you ended up saying that they would. you wouldn't be surprised if they put up 2 straight touchdowns, and I said that I would be pretty surprised if they even put up 2 straight touchdowns, and they ended up putting up 3 straight touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then the second part, going in the actual question, was what do you think contributed to them being able to put up 3 straight touchdowns after we both were
I think it's a
pretty adamant that they
combination
wouldn't be able to in the Chiefs preview?
of everything. Just they had good momentum, but at the same time, Coach Reed, Coach Bieniemy had a great job. They had some, and especially at the end, some very nice play calling and stuff to get them into position. But at the same time, yeah, Mahomes definitely came up clutch tonight. That's my piece. If you want
Oh,
to say
okay.
something else.
No, I was just curious what you were thinking about that, because that was one of the things that we both were relatively adamant about in the Chiefs preview. It was like, no, there's pretty much no way that a team would actually put up 3 straight scores. Like, I mean, you would have to think that one of these
Yeah, I
teams would
mean,
come.
it's just they had a lot of momentum, and it's kind of skewed because the last touchdown was very
True. Yeah.
uncontested. So I don't know if that, although it wouldn't count, it would count in the prop bet. I don't necessarily, if I would personally count myself as specifically wrong because if Damian Williams, I don't think he would have scored on that play if the 49ers wanted to tackle him.
Right.
But at that point, they're just like, let him score, let's just give us the ball back at that point.
Yep.
So so yeah, I don't. So it's just they had great play calling, especially at the goal line with that first touchdown to Kelsey. That was a great play call to scheme him open, But at the second time on the last drive, Mahomes had some very clutch throws. So yeah, the 3 straight I feel like excuses it personally, but yeah, just it was just a combination of good play calling and the best quarterback on the planet being coming up clutch.
Another thing that we were both very, very wrong on in the Chiefs preview and the San Francisco one was time of possession. And
Yeah.
everything seemed to signify going in that it would be San Francisco that was going to end up winning the time of possession battle. So we both ended up going with it being pretty obviously San Francisco. Well, turns out. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Anyway,
Tough.
oh well, I guess I'll keep going with the question while I load up the other page. It's ended up turning out to be San Francisco by I think, or not San Francisco, Kansas City by at least 8. I think it was 8 minutes. So do you
One
think that
second,
that
let
was
me
a
pull it
game
up.
plan type of idea from Kansas City, or do you think that that was maybe San Francisco trying to adjust and score more quickly, or
I think it
what do
was
you think was
Kansas.
the reasoning behind that?
I feel like San Francisco. They just made their adjustments, just throwing a lot, and Garoppolo, especially in the fourth quarter, didn't hit a lot of his throws, which didn't allow the clock to wind down. So I feel like it was more of just the adjustments that San Francisco tried to make, just not really working out because they weren't hitting their throws for most of the game.
And yeah, that one quick drive, but I think it was like they had a 3-and-out, wasn't it?
It was like it was right after the Chiefs made it 20-17, and it was like 6 minutes left, like not 6 minutes. It was like 8 to 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the 49ers went 3-and-out, which was really quick and allowed the Chiefs to get the ball back and eventually take the lead on the ensuing possession. So yeah, I feel like the possession thing was more of an adjustment to San Francisco in the fourth quarter that just didn't work.
The good news from this game is that for the most part, outside of 1 or 2 occasional misses, was that the refs really didn't do it. Wow, that's a fail. The refs didn't really control this game all that much, which I think is a good thing. There was the Kittle OPI call, which was kind of debatable, and then there was the one call that went against Kansas City on the Kelsey catch at
No,
the
it
goal
was
line.
against the 49ers on that in the goal line where he kind of face guarded him.
Yeah. I think it was against Kelsey. I think it was the receiver on that play.
Yeah,
So
Kelsey
those
was
were
the
the only.
receiver.
Hmm?
Yeah, Kelsey was indeed the receiver.
Yeah. So those were the only two real, I guess, even somewhat controversial penalties from the Vinovich crew. There were a couple of very, very interesting spots. But as far as the penalties go, do you think that the refs did a pretty good job, specifically Vinovich, in controlling this game?
Yeah, honestly, they let my only complaint is I felt like there was some blatant roughing the passer calls that both teams got away with, specifically hits and helmet to helmet hits on the both quarterbacks. So yeah, I feel that. But yeah, other than that, I didn't have much complaining with much of the penalties in this game personally. I felt like they did an all right job, and they didn't become a major story in this game, which is always good.
So one guy that I guess kind of really interested me about this game, especially as the game kept on unfolding, we talked about him a little bit already, was Debo Samuel. But another player that we haven't talked about yet that also made a huge impact in this game and was actually my vote for MVP at the beginning of the fourth quarter was Nick Bosa. So what kind of impact do you think that, I think you talked about him a little bit when we were talking about Kansas City's offense, but what kind of impact do you think that he made on this game throughout the first three quarters? And do you think that him not doing as much in the fourth quarter maybe was part of why Kansas City was able to come back? Or do you think that Mahomes adjusted in the fourth quarter and noticed that he was beating Fisher? Or what about that matchup do you think? Uh,
Yeah, I mean Nick Bosa was just terrorizing Eric Fisher all night, and it's just he was able to win in every single rep. Basically, it seemed like. So I don't necessarily know if it was an adjustment, but I feel like Eric Fisher made an adjustment personally more than just maybe not necessarily coaching, but yeah, Bosa not being able to make as much of an impact in the fourth quarter definitely didn't help the 49ers cause.
was that it?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So follow up on that is the last two guys that I both mentioned, Debo and Bosa, are both rookies. So what do you think about a team early on in the draft, potentially adding two impact rookies and being able to kind of get an impact like a Bosa and a Samuel? Do you think that I'm a Lions fan, so Lions bias kind of involved here, but if the Lions were able to get, say, a Chase Young and a Laviska Shenault in this draft, do you think that they could kind of get like a Bosa and Samuel type of impact that really ends up shining in bigger games later on this year? And that's not necessarily just the Lions. That could be the Redskins or Miami
The
or
Giants.
whoever.
Yeah, I think definitely think that can play a factor, and if you get two very good players in the top of the draft, you're gonna get two impact players. I feel like early on, you should at least in this draft class. So yeah, I'm very I feel like yeah, although I don't know if it necessarily will result in being going to the Super Bowl, definitely being able to add two top players early in the draft will definitely help the cause to trying to get to that level eventually.
Sweet. So, uh, in terms of individual impacts, was there anyone skill position wise, receiver, running back, tight end, that kind of surprised you with how much or how little impact they had on this game?
Um,
I think you go back to the box score
honestly,
account.
just no, I got the box score up personally, but yeah, no, Kevin Coleman. Honestly, early on, he was making a lot of impacts. He was having several very solid runs early on in this football game, and again, props to him for playing through his shoulder injury and stuff. But yeah, he definitely had an impact early on, and I don't know necessarily what happened, whether his shoulder acted up or again or whatever. But they kind of went away from him, and they went more back to Mostert because. And he had 5 carries for 28 yards and along the 17, so he definitely was able to get stuff to work early on in this game. More so in the first half, though.
Anyone else that kind of surprised you, either good or bad?
Um,
On
Good or
offense.
bad? Offense. It wasn't necessarily bad because it ended up working out, but McCole Hardman basically didn't do anything on offense tonight. He had like one catch for 2 yards or something according to the box score, and he had a carry for a loss of 6. So yeah, he was just kind of mostly used as a decoy tonight, which I mean it worked and it allowed Watkins and Hill and Kelsey to shine. But I'm interested. It's interesting that Hardman was used as the decoy tonight.
And I think that kind of also goes back to the rookie point that we just brought up not too long ago. And that he was another guy ended up falling not even just the top of the draft, but ended up falling to the later rounds and still had a pretty significant impact on the Super Bowl. He might not have been able to show up in the box score necessarily, but he was able to stretch the field pretty well, specifically horizontally, even more so than vertically. And kind of move that Chiefs defense around, or not Chiefs, move the 49ers defense around a little bit to help with the motion game, help with the pre-snap read game and things like that, as well as kind of give that Chiefs offense a little bit more of a vertical threat that San Francisco's defense needed to account for over the top. So, very interesting to see how he was utilized. And going back to this tape, I think that that'll kind of be something that'll be interesting to pay attention to, is how much attention that San Francisco gave to him on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
But moving over to the opposite side and the defense, Frank Clark had a sack. I believe it was pretty late in the game, but because at one point, I'm pretty sure it was after halftime, he still had not even had a tackle. I think it might have even been after the third quarter. He did
Yeah,
not have a single tackle. So were you a bit
he had.
surprised by his lack of impact on this game?
I mean, he definitely had an impact. He was getting pressure. He wasn't getting home, and it affected Frank Clark. Jesus Lord,
Chris
goodness
Jones.
gracious, it affected Garoppolo.
Oh,
In his ability to throw the football, and I could be tripping on this, but I think Clark was the one who hit him to force him in that first interception. No, that was Chris Jones. Shit.
yeah.
But no, yeah, Frank Clark, he allowed other guys to get pressure on tonight. So yeah, I feel that he had an impact. It just wasn't felt in the box score all that often.
And then on the other side, you have D Ford, who you thought might end up recording a sack, and he didn't end up getting to that mark. So were you a bit surprised by his lack of impact?
Yeah,
Specifically you, because I really wasn't, but
yeah, I felt like he would do more in this game just for the simple fact of I felt like it was going to be either him or Armstead really stepping up. I felt like they were going to double team Bosa and on the outside use a tight end and a fullback or or a running back to help on Bosa and obviously Buckner puts more precedence inside. So I felt like it was going to be either Ford or Armstead that would be able to win one-on-ones, and they just and Bosa, I probably both of them, but I'll have to take a peep at the box score. But yeah, really, neither of them really had. Well, yeah, neither of them had the biggest impact tonight. Again, first watching it, obviously, if we go back in the film, you'll never see. You'll maybe see something different, but
yeah, from what I remember, I thought Buckner was getting doubled quite a bit. He was the guy that was kind of drawing that attention away from some of the other players on the line, from what I remember seeing.
yeah,
Another guy that kind of, well, actually, I'll just go out and say two guys. They had a little bit maybe less of an explosive impact than we might have thought given the way that their offenses are based, are the two tight ends in this game, Travis Kelsey and George Kittle. Even more so Kittle, because Kelsey at least had the touchdown catch and the DPI that he drew. Were you kind of surprised at all about the lack of impact, or did you think that they kind of did meet those expectations and maybe that they were kind of being oversold going into the game? Because I think for me that they kind of underperformed what at least I was expecting them to kind of get to today, even with the the touchdown for Kelsey.
Who you talking about, Kelsey?
Kelsey and Kittle, the tight ends.
Honestly, Kelsey, I felt like he definitely had a bigger production because he had a. It's one of those where they
Compared
were,
to
but
expectations, not relative to each other, but like Kittle compared to Kittle's expectations and Kelsey compared to Kelsey's
yes, I
expectations.
would say Kittle didn't meet expectations, but Kelsey, I felt like he normal to where he is, and he didn't necessarily have the big game in the stat box, but he was drawing he drew a penalty, and he was drawing double teamed, which allowed other guys to have one on ones to have the opportunity to get open. So I felt like Kelsey had a very big impact on tonight's game.
Oh, okay, interesting. Do you think that
Again,
maybe
on
Kittle's lack of involvement statistically and anyone else might have been why San Francisco fell apart? I mean, because honestly, that could have been one of the ways that they've been went more aggressive was by trying to attack the seams with Kittle. Or
yeah,
do you think that that was game plan by Kansas City and maybe trying to avoid Tyrann Matthew and
I think Kansas City game plan to where like we're taking out Kittle no matter what, and we're gonna try and trust our corners to stop Sanders and Debo Samuel. So I feel like that was more of a game plan decision by Kansas City to take out, to just straight out take out, basically say Kittle can't beat us, and that we'll try and contain the receivers. And if they beat us, oh well. But we are not letting arguably the best, well, all around tight end in the league just beat us consistently over the middle of the field.
nice?
Because if you look at it, he was being doubled a lot from, again, what I was seeing. And of course, the disclaimer of this is just right after the game, so I haven't had the opportunity to even rewatch broadcasts, let alone any all 22. So maybe we'll see. But from what I was seeing, Kittle was double teamed a good bit tonight, which I feel like was definitely the move to if you're Kansas City.
A very interesting kind of take on this game is that it may not have been all that entertaining. A lot of
Yeah,
people are kind of leaving disappointed with the, I guess, lack of offense or lack of big plays or anything like that. And I'm curious if you think that this was an actual good football game. Because maybe there are some like casual fans, or maybe they just had expectations that were too high. But
I
personally,
feel
I thought this was really fun. I really enjoyed
Yeah, I
the way this
enjoyed the
game turned
game
out.
because you could clearly see a lot of the adjustments and a chess match that was going on. So I really enjoyed that game, and I feel like expectations were they. I didn't feel like they were ever gonna hit a 45, like a Philadelphia New England Super Bowl
Right.
52. I never felt like that was a realistic goal to happen unless both defenses completely capitulated and fell apart, which I didn't see both of them happening. So I felt like for what I expected coming into it, I was entertained by this game.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of it too is the way the mindset of the current NFL fan is in most places, especially casual fans in a lot of places, are really set towards the modern NFL offense is going to be like high scoring and this and that, and we want to see all these points. And for me, I've always been more the opposite. I grew up watching football in the early to mid 2000s. I was talking about today, like my favorite Super Bowls were like the early 40s Super Bowls. Like not the San Francisco, the Pittsburgh, Arizona Super Bowl was one of my favorites. And like I got to watch like the Carolina New England Super Bowl. I think it was my first one, and all like the Super Bowls throughout the late 2000s specifically were some of my personal favorites. And seeing this game wasn't necessarily a throwback to that completely because we did still have like Mahomes and the mobility at the quarterback spot, and we did have some explosiveness with the receivers and Tyreek Hill. But I feel like in some ways it kind of was. Because it wasn't like one of these incredible, like, you specifically brought up the Eagles Patriots game. I hated that game. That was probably my least favorite Super Bowl I have watched. So, for me, I honestly really had a blast watching this game. Maybe not as much as I did the Rams Patriots game. I loved that. But uh, I think this was kind of a pretty good balance between the two of them. Would you say that was the case?
Yeah, I thought this was a very fun game to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed this game, and yeah, if my team isn't in it next year, which who knows, you never know. But yeah, I would definitely not mind a game like that next year. Well, although especially if my team is in it and the AFC team wins again, if my team is in it. But yeah, no, I think I thoroughly enjoyed the game. It was a fun balance of you had some very good defensive plays, but at the same
Right.
time you had a good amount of offense, and you were able to see the chess match going on between Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid, Bieniemy and Saleh and all that good stuff. So Spiola and Spagnola, my
Sorry.
fault, and Shanahan as well. So it was a fun game for me to watch, and I disagree heavily with people that were disappointed with this game.
Definitely second that opinion. Now, one thing that's shown a lot of controversy after the game, in fact, probably the most controversial aspect of this game, was who won the Super Bowl MVP award. That's probably not where you thought I was going to go with it, was it? When I
Not
say
really.
controversial.
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about like the one of the PIs or that the touchdown by Williams to take the lead or something. I didn't hear
Oh,
you to
no,
pop
no,
out
no.
super.
We already kind of went over the most of the specific plays. I thought it was going to be the halftime show because the halftime show was pretty controversial too. But
Okay, we can talk about the halftime show if you want to.
no, no, no.
Yeah, I would not mind talking about that one.
No,
All I will say is I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I disagree. I wasn't a fan. Anyway, moving past that,
I'm
do you
I
agree with
wasn't
the
necessarily
opinion to give
talking about the
Patrick Mahomes the
music.
Super Bowl MVP award?
Huh?
Do you agree with the opinion of giving Patrick Mahomes the Super Bowl MVP award?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay, interesting. Why so?
First of all, I didn't necessarily say I enjoyed the halftime show because of the music.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but no, I fair anyway. Yeah, I honestly I wasn't a big fan of Williams, and his touchdown and all that stuff was I felt like it was stat padded because of the uncontested touchdown at the end, and I felt like Mahomes was overcome his interceptions to just have several solid throws and be able to just leave the team, you know, lead the team down the field. And most valuable player doesn't mean I don't think he was necessarily the best player tonight for the Chiefs,
Oh, okay.
but I don't see how they would have won the game without him and playing well, although it was admittedly, and I think he would probably admit it, not up to his normal standard.
Yeah, because like for me, I guess when I voted for MVP, I really wanted to vote for the player that I thought performed the best. So before the fourth quarter, I voted when voting first opened. I ended up voting for Nick Bosa because at that point in time, the 49ers were up 20 to 10.
10. Yeah. I voted for Debo because I felt like he was a huge part of them with running the ball on jet sweeps and that little touch patches and getting open for catches and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I voted for Debo when the 49ers were up. But I feel like, although I don't feel like, again, Mahomes wasn't the best player, but I feel like, and I don't mean any disrespect towards Damian Williams, I feel like if you put Darwin Thompson or uh, LaShawn McCoy in for Damian Williams, they still probably are able to win. But if you put in Matt Moore instead of Patrick Mahomes, there's no chance in
Yeah.
hell. So that's more my point. So I feel like that Mahomes did deserve MVP because it didn't say best player. It just said most valuable. And in my opinion, Mahomes was the most valuable player for them.
And yeah, for me, continuing off of that, I ended up going the opposite way, and I did vote for the players that I thought had performed the best after the game. So I ended up going for Chris Jones, who was a guy that we actually haven't talked a whole lot about in this so far.
Yeah.
He was someone who had a lot of pressure on the interior San Francisco offensive line, and to me, showed why I want the 49ers to draft an IOL or sign a big one early in this coming off season. So that was something that definitely stood out to me throughout the course of the game, whether it be the deflected passes, whether it be the hit on the interception, whether it be just the general pressure and the ability to kind of get Garoppolo um, off of timing, I guess.
Yeah, off
Unbalanced,
rhythm.
yeah, out of rhythm, unbalanced. Kind of just broke up what Kansas City, not Kansas City, what San Francisco was able to do on offense, and especially limiting the interior runs as well. Uh, and late in the game, kind of went away from it. I think that was kind of a game plan to help shut down Chris Jones. So I feel like in terms of overall impact on the opposing offenses, that him and Nick Bosa were probably the two best singular players in what they were able to do in this game. Do you happen to agree with that?
Yes, I would agree. To where if best players, I feel like were Bosa and Jones respectively for both teams. But yeah, so yeah, I wouldn't if Bosa would won MVP for the 49ers, they won, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But I feel like if you were saying if the award went to just the singular best player, not necessarily most valuable, then Chris Jones would probably get my vote.
I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed this game so much is because you still had that defensive talent. I mean, that San Francisco 49ers D line was pretty good for most of the night. And their secondary may not have been all that great, but I think we kind of expected that too. And San Francisco's D line was a little bit better than I kind of thought they were going to be going in. So it made this game a little bit more interesting, kind of just like, oh yeah, that was a really nice play. Or Rashad Breeland, another guy, especially early on. He had the interception. He was really aggressive on those screen passes. Kind of took away the San Francisco screen game early on with Debo. He was the other guy I was really impressed with his impact. Kyle Fuller, or not Kyle, Kendall Fuller had the interception as well. That was kind of more of a fluky play, but
That was the one that sealed it.
yeah, it was really interesting to be able to see these defenses kind of stand out a little bit. And yes, San Francisco had the number one pass defense and things like that going in, but I really enjoyed being able to see the defensive side of this game, and that was what made this game fun for me and why I enjoyed it so much. So, anything statistically that you want to kind of talk about, highlight, go over that we haven't talked about yet?
Mm. One thing I want to talk about is the kickoff coverage and punt coverage for Kansas City tonight. Because there was a lot of times where after Kansas City would kick it short at the goal line to where they would return it, but their kickoff coverage team was so great that a lot of the times that the 49ers would start around the 15, the 16, the 20, to where they weren't a lot of times the 49ers started drives inside the 20. So I feel like a lot of credit goes to the special teams coverage units of for Kansas City.
And Dave Taub, by extension.
Yeah, Dave Taub too. Yeah, because he did a great job putting them in position to do well. But the their special teams unit, both the punt coverage, minus that one kind of play with Pringle and stuff, and especially their kickoff coverage was very phenomenal and a very underrated part of why they won this football game.
Yeah, as you mentioned, long return of 19 yards with an average of 15 on their four returns for San Francisco.
Yeah,
Kansas City, not really too much better, but still 29 yards, including 19, was a little bit better and could have helped. Maybe not been the difference, but maybe helped
It
them.
definitely contributed.
Right. Any other aspects that you want to highlight that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I think that's about it.
Fabulous. So, any other individual players that you want to highlight? By the way, Buckner had 2 sacks. It's a lot more than I thought he did.
Good for him. But I mean, we can go. I mean, Buckner, he had a good game in the interior. He definitely was able to get a lot of pressure and able to get sacks and get Mahomes on the ground a couple times. But other than him, not really. I don't have. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's right. You can't see the screen share. I'm going through the box scores, just kind of looking for things. But yeah, no one
Yeah.
really too interesting. Damn,
Yeah.
I did not realize Chris Jones only had 1 tackle.
Hmm.
That really surprises me. I thought he had from how much he contributed to the game.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he had a lot more than that. That's crazy. Mahomes fumbles, 2 of them. Your take?
He definitely. I don't. I think he got both of them back. Yeah, because one of them
Yes,
was.
neither one of them was lost.
Yeah, one of them was a strip sack by Bosa that he fell on,
And then the other one was
which
the Ward.
with the Tart hit, the Moore hit, my fault, where it flew out of bounds. So I don't. I mean, it wasn't ended up not being a huge deal, especially the Moore thing, because that was more of a it flew straight out of bounds because there was no chance of anyone falling on it. But yeah, I mean, on the Bosa on the Bosa play, he did the strip sack. He did a great job recovering because at first I thought the 49ers got the football. But yeah, he did a great job diving on the football and keeping possession for his team on that specific play.
Tyreek Hill had 16 targets.
Good lord.
Yeah, again, kind of a little bit of surprise there, considering. Yeah, he had a pretty good statistical impact himself, 905, including the 44-yarder. But man, it seems like he did not really get that thrown at that many times. That's crazy. So, anyone else that you really want to highlight?
No, I'm good.
Fantastic, because that leaves us with one more final guy that I know you really want to talk about.
Who is it?
And that is the best player in Super Bowl history that will go down as an absolute legend and the number 1 cult hero of Super Bowl 54, Kyle Juszczyk.
The God. Yeah,
So,
he had a great game. All fullback enthusiasts should be thrilled with how he was used and how he performed in this game.
yes, I was so happy. That was one of my favorite moments in the entire Super Bowl. That touchdown catch probably made the entire Super Bowl for me. You forget all the defensive plays, forget the special teams and everything else. That was probably one of the best moments I have seen in the Super Bowl in the past 5 years. I loved it. One of my favorite plays in Super Bowl history.
Fun. Yeah.
Yes. So, special shout out to Kyle Juszczyk, my player of the game. Not best, not most valuable, whatever. Just my favorite player in the game. Definitely deserves a shout out, and that's how we're ending this. So, with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Super Bowl as well. This was very fun weekend for us, for the two of us, to kind of talk about this and watch some pro football and discuss some things and go over some of the season with you guys and hopefully learn a thing or two along the way as well. I did. I'm sure you
Yeah.
did as well, Braden.
And if you're also if you're in Kansas City, Don't do something stupid. Please, we don't want any of our followers spending the night in jail. If we're cool with you guys partying, but don't go overboard. We don't want you destroying your own city over a football game, please. Because I know that Denver's done it before.
Yeah, I'm sure we ever do, the city will probably be having
That
flames.
that would be fun to see. Oh boy, but yeah, please, if you're gonna go, if you do see this and you do partying over the next week, just please be smart, and please don't drink and drive.
On that intelligent, very respectful note, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and for now, peace out when this loads. There we go.